G'day, it's Ash from Visionline, and today we're going to do a product walkthrough of the Visionline Air Flue System. So the Visionline Air Flue System is an insulated flue system which differentiates itself from a default flue system. So the first thing we're going to have a look at today is the difference between a default system and an insulated flue system. So looking at a standard default system, we've got what we call a drop box here. Now a drop box has a series of holes around the outside, and the idea of this is that it's taking room air and basically ventilating in between your two cases and then underneath the cap. And what that's doing is keeping this actual outer casing cool, so when it passes through your roof cavity, it's completely safe. The issue of that is that when it's venting through these holes, it's taking all that really lovely warm air that you've created by the fireplace to be able to keep those casings cool. And that's where an insulated flue comes into its own. So just looking at a section of insulated flue that we have here, you can see that we've got a layer of 25mm packed insulation, an air gap, and then a 12mm insulation gap around the outside of that again. So what that's doing is keeping the flue cool and giving you the ability to be able to pass through the roof without losing any efficiency inside the house. So not only with this drop box are you actually losing air going through the room, you also get a lot of noise through here as well. So one of the biggest complaints that we have about default flue kits is a noise that reverberates down the actual outer casings of the flue itself through the drop box. The beauty of the Visionline Air Flue system is that it's a totally silent flue system. So not having that connection between your room and outside being completely open means that we're not getting noise through there. There's a common misconception that a noisy flue is due to the active 6-inch flue, but it's generally your 10 1/4 and your 8 1/4 in between there and sound that comes through there. So the beauty of this is that you're going to have a fireplace which is completely silent. So not only are you losing air through that drop box, you're also losing it at the ceiling ring as well. What I've got here is a traditional ceiling ring which is used on a default flue kit, and you can see there it's got 12mm spaces around the outside. The idea of that is that that's going to push up against the ceiling and create a 12mm gap which allows it to ventilate through. So you're also losing that room air through that gap there. The beauty of a Visionline Air Flue system is that we actually use a completely flat ceiling ring, as you can see here, and that pushes directly up against the ceiling and seals off completely, to the point that you could actually use some RTV black silicone and actually seal that completely off around the outside there. So not only are you not losing heat through that drop box, you're also not losing it through the ceiling ring as well. So once that insulated flue is dropped through your ceiling, you go into what we call a transition piece. So you can see here on the one side of the transition piece, we've got that 25mm and 12mm packed insulation around the outside, and that's going to transition into an 8-inch flue which comes down to the room, or what we call stovepipe. So it does look like a drop box that's coming through there, but obviously the big difference is that we don't have those holes around the outside because it is a room seal flue kit. So once that transition piece is fitted to the actual flue system itself, we move into what we call stovepipe, which goes around there, which goes down to the spigot of the fire itself. So the stovepipe that we use on Visionline is actually a triple skin flue. So you've got an outer 304 stainless steel and then an inner 316 steel, and then there's actually a carbon composite layer on the inside of that again. The idea behind the carbon composite layer is that it's going to be able to help the fire draw and also be able to create an established stack effect quickly inside the fireplace. The other thing it helps with is the air intake system, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. Fireplaces which are installed inside your house use oxygen for combustion. So that oxygen is generally taken from inside the room and it's replenished what we call ambiguously. So that's going to be from cracks underneath your door or in your window cavities. As houses become more efficient or high Energy Star rated, those cracks and seals where air can come from are sealed off, and that causes a negative pressure effect against the fireplace. The beauty of a Visionline or a Quadra-Fire fire is that it has the ability to be able to hook up to outside air. Outside air gives you the ability to be able to draw air for combustion from outside directly into the fireplace, negating any type of pressure issues which are inside the house. The beauty of the Visionline air system, and where it differentiates itself from any other flue system on the Australian market, is that it has the ability to be able to draw air for combustion down the flue to the fireplace itself. So that stovepipe which is coming down through your roof and down to the actual fireplace itself, the last section we use is T-section here, which has a 100mm pipe that comes off the back of it, and that's pointing away to the wall behind the back of the fireplace. So you can't see that when it's actually installed on the fireplace itself. What that's doing is through the gap that we've got here, bringing air for combustion down the flue and then into the back of the fireplace itself. And it does that in a really smart way. We have what we call a snorkel which fits onto the back of the unit, and that's going to plug into that 100mm pipe on that T-section, and then another 100mm section down below which is going to plug into the air intake on the fireplace itself. So even if you don't have an energy efficient home, having a balanced flue wood burning fireplace means that you're not bringing in air for combustion through those ambiguous spots, creating cold drafts inside your home. So once you've got that TP section installed with the snorkel on there, it's going to bring its air for combustion through that stovepipe. And again, as we talked about before, through that transition piece and then into packed insulated flue going through your roof cavity itself. So that's where that gap that we've got there comes into play, giving you the ability to be able to run down through there as well. Once we get up through your roof and out to the outside, we would use what we call a rain cap for the top. So it looks a little bit different from what you'd see as a traditional default flue cap, a little bit bigger, but also powder coated black as well. It's got the traditional wind rim around the outside, which is going to stop any type of downdraft coming through the fireplace. But the really big difference here is just that shroud that comes around the outside there. So the idea behind the shroud is that it's protecting the intake. So looking up in through there, we can actually see where it'll be taking air through, back down that packed insulated pipe, through the stovepipe, into your snorkel and into the unit. So what we're creating is a balanced flue wood burning fireplace. The next efficiency that we talk about with insulated flue systems is the actual efficiency of the fireplace itself. So fireplaces to combust correctly use what we call the stack effect. So when you light the fire, it creates heat inside the flue, which creates a draw or stack effect up through the roof. With a traditional Australian default flue system, it's a little bit harder to be able to do that because it is an air-cooled flue. The beauty of an insulated flue and a triple layer stovepipe inside there with the carbon composite layer is that it achieves that stack effect very quickly, which means that it's easy to establish a fire and get a fire drawing and operating correctly quickly. But more importantly, at the end of the burn cycle, it means that the flue holds temperature for longer, which means that your burn time that you have in your actual fireplace itself is a little bit longer. But more importantly too, you're not left with unburnt pieces of wood at the bottom of the fireplace. Unburnt sections of wood inside your fireplace means that the fireplace has lost stack effect. So having a fireplace or a flue system which can give you that extra time on that means that you're going to have not only a full burn inside the fireplace, but less to clean up inside there as well. Construction of the flue is vitally important as well. One thing you notice straight away is that all the components on this flue system are powder coated black. So even going up through your roof cavity and out through the roof, what you see from the outside is a perfectly black flue kit. That black powder coat's around the outside of a 304 outer stainless steel, which is all seam welded, so you can't see any folds in there as well. And then the inner flue itself is 316 stainless steel inside there. So if you're in like a property which is near the coastal area, you've got not only the protection of powder coat around the outside, but you've also got full stainless steel on every component that's exposed. One big difference too about insulated flue versus an Australian default flue kit is that it's all twist lock joins. So that makes it a very tight seal inside there, but also extremely easier to be able to install inside a roof cavity as well. Being a Norwegian designed flue means that it meets not only CE standards, but also EN standards as well. That's vitally important when it comes to these joins. So twist lock joins are fantastic and really easy for the installer to be able to put in, but also too easy for maintenance down the track as well. If you wanted to do a flue clean on this, you can basically lift off your last section of flue by untwisting it and running a flue brush down the inside and cleaning your flue itself. It means that you don't need to get to the top cap to be able to undo it like you would on a traditional Australian default flue kit. Not only are we tested to the CEN standards for Europe, we're also tested to Australian standards Appendix F, which covers the penetration through your ceiling and roof cavity and to the outside. We're also covered under a letter of opinion to Appendix B, which covers the inside of your room and clearance to the fireplace. That means that this type of flue kit can be installed on the majority of fireplaces on the Australian market. So what if you don't have a fireplace which has outside air intake into it? You can still fit the insulated flue kit onto your fireplace and you're going to get all the benefits of an insulated flue kit, which is the ability for the fireplace to run more efficiently, not losing air through your drop box and not losing air through your actual ceiling ring itself. The other big benefit is that you're getting a fully stainless steel flue kit and a really nice sleek black flue around the outside for inside the house. So that's our walkthrough of the VisionLine Air insulated flue system. For more information or to find your local dealer, go to our website. Thanks a lot.